Hello, this is Josh Patel back again with another biology lesson. Today we will be finishing all of chapter 16, which is human impact on ecosystems. So we'll start here at 16.1, which is human population growth and natural resources. Key concept is as the human population grows, the demand for Earth's resources increases. So we have a couple different types of resources. We have renewable and non-renewable. So renewable resources is anything that can come back, that regrows, or that we can never run out of, like sunlight and wind. And then non-renewable is anything we can run out of, which would be like coal, oil, fossil fuels. So Earth's human population continues to grow. Earth's human carrying capacity is unknown. So our population grows exponentially. So for the past like millions of years, very long time in Earth's history, our population was very little, but in the last couple hundred years, our population has been skyrocketing exponentially. So it's like an exponential curve. It goes steadily up, and then at the end, it just like shoots up. So about now, we're at like about 8 billion, and we're just gonna keep going up. So population in billions, see, it's an exponential curve. It was steady for like a long time, and then it just shot up in the 1950s. So not even 100 years ago. Technology has helped to increase Earth's carrying capacity. So first of all, carrying capacity is how much, how many people the Earth can carry. So based on what resources the Earth has, how many people it can carry. So we don't know, but some scientists have estimated about how much, but we're not sure yet. So we have helped to increase Earth's carrying capacity by being efficient with gas-powered farm equipment. So the farm equipment allows us to harvest more food and be more productive so we can feed everybody. Medical advancements, so basically help people live longer. The growing human population exerts pressure on Earth's natural resources. So humans are using a lot of Earth's resources. Non-renewable resources are used faster than they form. So even though we have non-renewable resources, we're using them way too much and they're not going to grow back in time. So coal and oil. So renewable resources can be used up or can replenish themselves over time, but even though they can replenish themselves, as I said, we're using them up too fast. So we can't use up wind too fast, but we use up water a lot, and there's also sunlight, and growing use of non-renewable resources may lead to a crisis. Resources must be properly managed. So to maximize how much resources we have, we try to use all of them with windmills and the dams for water. So effective management of Earth's resources will help meet the needs for the future. So if we use all our resources wisely, we'll have enough for future generations. Earth's resources must be used responsibly. Careless use of resources makes them unavailable to future generations. So Easter Island is an example of irresponsible resource use. So basically it's an island of land and it's useless. There's no trees on it because they cut them all down and the land isn't being used for anything. An ecological footprint is the amount of land needed to support a single person. So the land must enough to min- like enough to maintain the person. So it must produce food and water, shelter, energy, and have space for waste. So there's actually a movie about this. I think it's called My Ecological, or I think it's My Carbon Footprint, and it basically goes through a boy and a girl's life, a normal average American life, and counts up how much stuff we actually use up in the world and how many trees we need, how much chemicals and everything. They go through like starting as a baby and they add up every single thing, like all your diapers, all cans, everything. So several factors affect the size of the ecological footprint: amount and efficiency of resources used, amount and toxicity of waste produced. So this just shows how much pollutions we make basically. So 6.2, air quality. Fossil fuel emissions affect the biosphere. And the biosphere, we learned, is basically everywhere there is life. So pollutions accumulate in the air. Pollution is any undesirable factor added to the air, water, or soil. Smog is one type of air pollution. Sunlight interacts with pollutants in the air and pollutants produced by fossil fuel emissions. So we have factories that basically put in a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of other pollutions in the air, and then this happens in big cities a lot because there's many factories. The sunlight interacts with the pollutions in the air and creates smog, which is like a hazy fog, and it looks blackish, and it's not nice. Made of particulates and ground level ozone. So this is smog up here. You can see how the air isn't clear and see-through. It's like it has a dark haze to it, and it's really bad for people's health. So smog can be harmful to human health. Acid rain is caused by fossil fuel emissions and produced when pollutions in the water cycle cause rain pH to drop. So if the pH of rain drops, that makes it more acidic. If you took chemistry, you would know that. So it can lower the pH of lake or stream. So since the pH of the air or the rain coming down is lowering, it's going to lower the pH of everything it falls on because it's going to dilute it a little. So this can harm trees too. So normal rain is usually 5.6, and acid rain has a pH of 4.6. So the pH of a neutral substance like water should be 7, but our normal rain is already a little acidic, and it's just going to become more acidic at 4.6. So air pollution is changing Earth's biosphere. High levels of carbon dioxide are typical of Earth's warmer period. So carbon dioxide increases the greenhouse effect, and that's why we get warmer, and we're going to learn about that soon. The levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide rise and fall over time. So the amount of carbon dioxide we have fluctuates a lot. So the greenhouse effect, slows the release of energy from Earth's atmosphere. And when they mean energy, they basically mean heat. So sunlight penetrates the Earth's atmosphere. So sunlight comes in, energy is absorbed and radiated as heat. Radiated. So the sunlight comes in and it produces heat on the Earth. And greenhouse gases in our atmosphere and the ozone, they absorb longer wavelengths and they don't let the sun's heat leave. So the sun's heat comes in and stays here for a really long time and releases slowly, just like what a greenhouse does. It takes in the sun's energy and it keeps it nice and warm inside. Greenhouse gas molecules release infrared radiation. Okay. So global warming refers to the trend of increasing global temperatures. So as we see here, slowly our temperatures keeps rising. And global warming also is melting our north and south poles, and it's really bad for the polar bears living up there and other animals. So 16.3, water quality. Key concept here is pollution of Earth's freshwater supply threatens habitat and health. Water pollution affects ecosystems. So everything in the biosphere uses water, so it's really bad for ecosystems. Pollution can put entire freshwater ecosystems at risk. Indicator species provide a sign of ecosystem's health. So these are species that scientists look at to judge the health of the ecosystem, and they're usually amphibians because they're very prone to pollution. As we can see, this frog has a very bad mutation due to pollution. And top predators because they're like the top of the pyramids. Biomagnification causes accumulation of toxins in the food chain. So toxins in the food chain are very harmful, especially if they start at lower levels because the pollution gets higher up at the top of the food chain. Pollutants can move up the food chain. Predators eat contaminated prey. So the way it moves up is, let's say the producers are polluted, then the primary consumers are going to eat the polluted, producers get polluted themselves, and then whatever eats them is even more polluted. So pollutants accumulate as each stage of the food chain. Top consumers, including humans, are most affected. So here we have a food chain. We start from the bottom, where we have phytoplankton, and it's slightly polluted. Let's say the water the phytoplankton's living in is polluted. So then the zooplankton is also more polluted because it eats a lot of phytoplankton. So it eats a lot of 0.025 pollutants, so it gets even more polluted and even more and more as it goes up. So the 16.4 treat threats to biodiversity. The impact of a growing human population threatens biodiversity. So as we already said, our population has increased a lot, and this is threatening other animals. Preserving biodiversity is important to the future of the biosphere. So biodiversity is how everything varies, so how we're way different than a bird. So the loss of biodiversity has a long-term effect. We can lose medical and technological advancements. So we'll miss out on these animal specialties and we can't incorporate them into our science. So extinction of species, loss of ecosystem stability. So if one very important keystone animal, as we learned about, dies, like I think the example was the beaver. If beavers get extinct, we won't have wetland biomes that much anymore. So all the animals living there would die. The fishes wouldn't have a nice lake to swim around in, and these birds can't migrate here anymore. So loss of habitat eliminates species. So habitat fragmentation prevents an organism from accessing its entire home range. So usually animals have this big biome that they can travel around in, but humans are basically intersecting these biomes to create structures like highways. So it occurs when barriers form within the habitat, often occurred by human development. Habitat corridors are a solution to the problem. Corridors can be road overpasses or underpasses, and they basically let the animals cross over and access all of their biome. So allow species to move between different areas of their habitat. And a habitat is basically just where animals live. So here we have a highway that cut through this forest here, which animals used to live. And so previously animals could easily cross through here because it was all forest. We cut down all the trees and built a road. So now if they try to pass over, they're going to probably die from the highway. So in some places we create these overpasses which allow them to pass over, but it's still not as convenient as if there was no road. Because if they want to cross over here, they have to come all the way here and cross over, and they probably don't even know this is here. So introduced species can disrupt stable relationships in an ecosystem. So an introduced species is one that is brought in to the ecosystem by humans. So humans bring in plants and animals from different regions of the world by accident or on purpose. And these are called invasive species. So they can have an environmental and economic impact. So if we take an animal from a different part of the world and put it into a brand new biome that it doesn't, a brand new habitat it never been in, it's gonna end up thriving because none of the other animals know what this is. They're not scared of it, or they don't know anything about this animal. So they don't know if they can eat it, they don't know if it's gonna eat them. But this new animal is gonna try out all these new things, and it's just gonna start, if it's a predator, it's gonna start eating things that don't know to be scared of it. So here, we'll get to an example. So invasive species often push out native species. So it increases competition among the species because we have a new species, and this invasive species often wins. So the Burmese python in the Florida Everglades is a good example. So this is a predator, and I'm pretty sure it was accidentally released in there by somebody had a pet, and they accidentally released it, and it eventually found another one of itself, and they started reproducing. And so there's lots of pythons in the Everglades now. Sometimes there's hunts that go around that citizens are allowed to hunt pythons because we're trying to fix the problem of invasive species. So we put this python in the Everglades, and it's a predator, so it's going to eat anything it can basically find. And it's not going to know much about all these animals here, but it's just going to try to eat them. And so let's say there's a rat there. The rat's not going to know to be scared of it because they've never seen this animal. It doesn't know it's harmful, so they're all going to end up dying to the snake, and the snake is going to end up eating all of them and becoming healthy and reproduce even more. So in Australia, we have these mice, and there's just a ton of mice in Australia. And then we have kudzu, which is a plant species that has competed with native species and taken over. So conservation, 16.5, our key concept is conservation methods can help protect and restore ecosystems. So sustainable development manages resources for present and future generations. Sustainable development meets needs without hurting future generations. So we have to figure out a way to use all our resources effectively and save up for future generations. We can't use them up all now or we're going to run out. And we're going to have to find new ways, which we're already trying to find, like more new ways to use sunlight. So resources meet current needs, resources will still be available for future use. The timber industry has started to adopt sustainable practices, so they'll like cut down a couple trees and then they're going to plant back the same trees they cut down. Global fishers have adopted several sustainable practices, rotation catches, so they don't catch in the same area all year. They'll switch areas so they don't kill all the fish in the same area. They have fishing gear review, harvest reduction, so they can't catch as many. They can only catch a few now. And we have fishing bans in certain areas to protect endangered species. Conservation practices focus on a few species but benefit entire ecosystems. So, Endangered Species Act works to protect individual species from extinction. And so, protecting these from extinction, if they're a keystone species, it's going to help the entire ecosystem. But even if it's not a keystone species, it's still going to help the entire ecosystem. A listed species is often called an umbrella species. The habitat in which the species lives must be protected. So, to protect the species, we have to protect the habitat. Other species are protected because they share the ecosystem. So, since if there's an endangered species in your ecosystem, let's say your animal, and they're trying to protect that endangered species, they're going to protect the habitat. And since you live in the same habitat, you're also being protected. So protecting Earth's resources helps protect our future. If we save up all the resources and don't consume them all, we're going to have some for the future. The Environment Protection Agency, the EPA, was created in 1970. So this agency basically tries to do lawful things in the environment. The EPA develops policies and regulations to protect the environment. Legislation helps to protect the environment and endangered species. So we're basically getting government officials and higher authority into protecting the environment. So we made the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act. So in developed countries like America, we're getting all this government enforcement into our environment. But in other parts of the world, in developing countries like Mexico and India, the government's not that concerned about the environment because they're still concerned about their own industry, their own people. They're not at this higher level yet. And so they're destroying their environment, well, they not unknowingly, but they don't mean to, but they can't help it because they have bigger things to worry about. So we need to have a bigger worldly effect on our environment. The National Park Service helps manage public lands. The park system includes over 390 acres, converting 84 million acres. So not that important. There are several ways that people can help protect their environment. There are many things we can do. We can control population growth, develop sustainable technology and practices, protect and maintain ecosystems. So that's the end of chapter 16, which is all about the human impact on the ecosystem. And so next time we will be doing chapter 17.